What's going on, guys? It's Brendan from Modern to Me, and today we're going to be learning about static variables and static methods as well. So we've been working with these like pretty much since day one. You see the static keyword here, and we're going to go a little bit more in depth today about what this static keyword means. So to start off, let's just make a new class so we can kind of reference what this static variable is. So just go to File, or not File, or you could do it in File, but I like to do it in the Package Explorer, and then just right click on Source, New Class, and then I'm just going to name it My Object. It's just going to kind of be a general class, nothing really fancy, nothing very specific. I just kind of want to get the point across of what static means. So let's kind of just explore this concept a little bit. So let's say you have just a normal class. We can call this class dynamic. So what I mean by this is something that's dynamic is ever changing. It's something that has a lot of flexibility and something that can be different every time. So when you think of a class, you know, the best example is just a person class. So you have a person class and they have different names, they have different ages, different genders, different addresses. And so that would be dynamic. That would be what I would like to call dynamic. When you have a variable that's static, it doesn't change. So every instance of that class would have this same static variable. So let's say let's create a static variable. Let's make a static string. We'll just go name, I guess. Static string name, and we'll set it equal to just like this is an object. So the difference between a regular variable and a normal variable, so if we had like a string, we'll call this like dynamic name and set this equal to I love this object. So if we were to create an instance of this, let me create two instances just so I can kind of demonstrate this. So you have my object, object1, and we'll set this equal to well, let me create a constructor real quick. We might be using this later, so just public my object, and then we'll make these public too. So just go public and public. Okay. Now, if we were to make a new my object and another my object, okay, what would happen if we were to print out object1 dot name? So this is our static variable, so remember that. Let's print this out for both of our objects, and now let's change this variable. So we have object1 dot name, and this is our static variable, remember, and we'll change this to I like bacon. My heart's feeling it. So I like bacon, and now we're going to print these out again. Copy and paste is a lovely thing. Alright, there we go. So if we were to run this, we'll see that what happens is we have this is an object, this is an object. So remember, when we create this variable, it's automatically initializing to this is an object for both of these. But the kind of interesting thing comes in when we change object1 dot name and we set this equal to I like bacon, and we print out name from the object1 and the object2 instance. You see that even though we didn't even reference object2 at all, the variable actually changed. And this is kind of what the static variable is. A static variable is the exact same variable. There's only one instance of it for every single class you create. So you're accessing the same variable when you are going through object1 or object2. It's all the same. And if you were to do this with dynamic name, if you were to change dynamic name for one of these, you'd see that you would not get this result where the object or the variable is changed for both classes. That would not be true with dynamic name because it's not static. So that's kind of what the static variable does. It creates a variable that is used throughout the whole class, and it's not specific to one instance. It's specific to the class. So actually, you see I get a whole bunch of warnings here. You see the static field myObject.name should be accessed in a static way. And what that means is you shouldn't ever access it through the instance itself, because a static variable isn't specific to an instance, it's specific to the class. So therefore you should access it through the class. So what that means is you just go myObject.name, and that is how you access static variables. You don't access them, I'm not doing anything with it. If I were, you'd want to go like system.out.println. You'd want to print it out this way. That's how you access static variables. You don't ever access it through the instance. You actually access it through the class itself. So that's kind of the summary of static variables. Let me kind of show you some very useful instances of it. So let's say we have this myObject. All it has is like a name, public string name. And what we can also have is we can have another variable, a static variable, int num instances. So static variables are very useful to keep track of how many instances you have of a class. So if we were to have this constructor with that parameter, and then you just set like this dot name equal to name, what you could do is, what we should do is actually set this equal to 0. And then what you do is each time you go num instances plus plus. And so every time you create an instance of this class, myObject.num instances, every time you were to, there we go. Every time you were to increment this, to create a class, excuse me, this variable gets incremented, and it can be accessible with every single, with just the class itself rather than each individual instance. So let me show you what the result of that would be if we just have like freaking random names for these classes we're creating. Let me just create a couple more. We go like biscuit, spelled sort of correct, and then quad. I don't even know what that is. But if we were to print out myObject.num instances, you should see that we get, oops, there's an error. We should probably have different names. We see that we get the number 4, so we created 4 instances. I think this is a very, very useful mechanism, I guess you could say, a very useful strategy to keep track of how many instances you have created of a class. And you can use this static variable in other ways that you can, you feel fit. You feel as if some sort of class has a very static variable that doesn't need to change amongst classes, more of just a property of the class itself. Like for some reason you have a if you had like if you were making a game and you had an enemy class and the health for every enemy was always going to be 100, you could set a static variable equal to 100, and that way every single one of these enemies will have the same health. It doesn't have to be a dynamic element. That's a very static variable that you would want to create. So that's the gist of static variables. I hope that makes more sense. If we go back and check out this static void main method, this main method never changes. When you run this program, it runs once, and it's a static method because of that. It does not change throughout the program. It's only ran once, and it's ran the same way. So that's why that is static. And I hope that makes a little bit more sense. This static thing shouldn't be too alien to you guys now. And I hope you join me in the next tutorial, and I'll see you guys there.